Good morning and welcome back. It's Monday, April the 17th, and I'm gonna fill you in a little bit about what we've done since we've seen you last. We finished all the tomato stakes. We got our Cubanelle and jalapeno peppers planted. We got those staked. We got the bell pepper staked, and we got our chemicals in the hole of all the peppers like we did on the last video in the tomatoes. Got all that done. We've got our third corn planted and sprayed. And right now we're getting ready to put out some urea on my corn. And I'm probably just gonna pull it with my truck. And then we've got some more fertilizing to do on my pea ground. We're going to be putting out some chemical in the middles of my plastic with the hood. We're going to be incorporating that, and we're going to be starting thinning the peach trees, the fruit off the trees. So we've got a lot to do here in the next few days. Rain chances looks like right now Thursday evening and Friday, so got a lot to do before then. This is what the urea looks like. It's little white pellets. It's going to be our nitrogen source on our corn. All right, our corn has come up really nice. It looks pretty. This is going to be the first corn right here. It's probably 8 to 12 inches tall, something like that. It's going to be our second corn. It's going to be probably 3 to 6 inches tall. All right, this is our third corn here we just planted. We leave a skip 2 rows between the third and the second, and we do the same thing between the second and the first. Leave a skip down through there. It's wide enough we can drive the truck and pull the trailer when we're harvesting the corn to get down through the middle there. All right, you can see the little white pellets there on the ground. That's urea. We put out 435 pounds to the acre here, which is 200 units of actual nitrogen per acre. You don't have to incorporate this because it dissolves real fast. We'll come back tomorrow and it'll be gone even without any rain. So it just kind of melts right in. We use the dry fertilizer on the corn just because it's easier and it's a little cheaper. If you remember back in one of my first videos when we were putting out the liquid fertilizer in the plastic rows, we used the fertilizer applicator. I could use that on my corn and side dress it right to the side and put out liquid, right beside the row. But we used the dry fertilizer last year and it worked pretty good. So it's just a little easier. That's why we use the dry. All right, if you couldn't already tell, we are using our hood again between the plastic rows. And right now we're putting out a pre-emerge called Prowl H2O. It's pretty good on grass and pigweed and purslane. Those are the kind of the 3 biggest weeds that give us the most problem. We can do this a couple of different ways. We can put it out and let it rain on it and incorporate it. We've talked about that. Or we can put it out and manually incorporate it with tillage. And that's what we're going to do with this. We need to plow our middles between the plastic because it's getting dusty on the sandy loam type soils that we have. When it rains on it a good bit like we had a couple weeks ago, it seals it off. And then when you get a lot of sunshine plus some wind, you'll get a lot of dust start blowing, and we don't want that on our little transplants. So the only way to keep that from happening is to keep it tilled in the middle, plowed up in the middles. Once the vines start running on the vine crops or the tomatoes get bigger, then the dust blowing is not a problem. It's mainly just the first month probably after we start planting. So we're going to incorporate the prowl after we put it out, and that will activate it. We will come back in 21 days and do it again, but we might reverse it. We might plow it again in the middles and then put it out, if that makes sense, and let it rain on it, and that way it won't be disturbed. We'll just kind of have to see. You can do it either way, and it kind of just depends on what you need to do. In the old days, we would use the hood and not plow it at all in the middles, but that's when we had a lot of problems with the dust. So we don't want that to happen. There's another chemical that we have used the last couple of years that does a better job than prowl. It's not too great on the grasses, but it does a real good job on pigweed and purslane. But it's a little more dangerous to the transplants. And so we've had some burn the last couple of years. You cannot incorporate that. You have to put it out and let it be rained on. In the last 2 years, we've got a real violent thunderstorm. The first time it got rained on, and it blew it up on the plastic, and we got a lot of burn. So Prowl H2O is much safer. So I think I'm going to go back to using that. Even though it may not do quite as good a job, we don't have to worry about burning those transplants. And it burned them pretty good last year. Those vines were right on the edge of the plastic, and it smoked them pretty good. Now they came back, but it delayed them a little bit. Now obviously once the vines start running in the plastic and they get off the plastic on the dirt, then we cannot do anything else. We can't plow it in the middles, we can't spray it. So we do everything before that, and then when that point gets here, that's it. You can't do anything else but hoe it. We're doing the entire plastic field, even though we have not planted everything, because you still have to keep it clean. When we come back and do it the second time though, we'll probably do the oldest melons and cantaloupes first. Do it right before they get ready to run off of the plastic on the dirt, and then we'll wait and do the second ones the same way. With the tomatoes and the peppers, it doesn't really matter because they're not getting off the plastic. You can do them anytime. So we're back here the next morning, and we are going to kill two birds with one stone here, like we talked about yesterday. We're going to get our middles plowed up, and we're also going to be mechanically incorporating our chemical at the same time. I'm gonna show you the plow right here. All right, it's just got some teeth and some hairs in the back, and we have cut it down to exactly 100 inches, the same width as our hood. All right, that's what one pass looks like right there. You can tell it fits right exactly in the middle. It may be hard to tell, but right here, you know, we talked about that sand blowing, but you can tell how it seals off right here, especially where it's flat, you know, and it's wide, and you can just kind of imagine that you get a real windy, sunny day several days in a row after it's sealed off, and you get a lot of blowing. So the tillage will keep it from blowing for a while. These are our little cantaloupe plants. You can tell that they are growing and taking off. all finished. All right, as you can see, we're back on the spreader buggy, and I'm doing the pea ground. We're going to do the field we've already planted, and then we're going to do the next several fields that we'll plant up until about the end of May. And then the fields that I'll plant late in June, I'm going to wait and fertilize them later so we don't do it so far ahead of time. We're putting out ammonium sulfate and potash. You know, the peas are a legume, which they normally fix their own nitrogen. That's what legumes do, but we still like to put a little bit of nitrogen. That's what the ammonium sulfate is for. You don't want to put too much because you'll end up with too many vines and not enough peas, but if you put just a little, it'll, you know, green them up and give you a big strong vine. So we've done that the last few years, and it works pretty good. We won't be able to incorporate the field that we've already planted. We'll just have to let it melt in, but everything else we're going to re-hip it. The rate we're putting out is 75 pounds to the acre of ammonium sulfate and 75 pounds to the acre of potash. All right, you see we've got the hipper back now. We're doing everything that we just did with the fertilizer buggy, which is about 30 acres. So we'll get all that incorporated and re-bedded up and shaped up, and it needed to be re-hipped anyway because all the rain we've had had kind of washed the rows off and beat them down. You can see it's pretty dusty. All right, we're in the greenhouse, and I'm going to show you what the crops in here look like right now. These are some extra tomatoes to keep for the very end in case we need them. These will be the second tomatoes that we'll plant pretty soon. These are our second watermelons here and here. These are a few cushaws. This is an okra right here. Over here is our second bell peppers. These are our second cantaloupes. You can see how the tomatoes are greening up. It's taking them a little while. It's still been cold at night. We still got a couple more cold nights ahead and this weekend, but you know, things really don't start really growing fast until the nighttime temperatures are 60 degrees and above, but they are growing, just slow. All right, you can see right here where the stakes are on the tomatoes and how the sprayer just goes right over them, just like that. Same thing on the other side. There's our first peas coming up. They're not all up yet, but they're cracking, and some of them are up. Some of them are in the process of coming up. We started thinning the peaches, and I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like before and what it looks like after. Slow process, but it's something that's got to be done. All right, this is a good example right here while we thin them. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 peaches right here in this one small area. You want them about 4 to 6 inches apart. We're going to take some of these off. We'll leave that bigger one right here. All right, now we're left with 2 right here, and 2 right here. So some places are more thicker than others. Just kind of depends, but we got to do all the trees like that. See right here, we've got a peach here. We're gonna leave one right here. We've got one right there, right here. Here's a double right here. We're gonna pull this off. We've got another 2 right here. We're gonna pull one of these off. Look up here. You got all these peaches right here. A lot of these peaches are little, but you can see them all over the ground right here. In this 3-foot section of a limb right here, there's probably 40 peaches right here. Almost all of them will have to come off. You know, theoretically, you would want to take off about 3/4 of all the peaches probably under normal conditions. Some years, you know, the peach will have more fruit on there than others. A lot of that goes back to the cold hours like we talked about. But it's kind of hard to do the first time you do it, but when you throw 3/4 of your peaches on the ground, but that's a necessity, and if you want peaches that are not little bitty, you got to do it. It's kind of a psychological deal when you're throwing your fruit on the ground, but you can sure tell the difference in the places that get missed where there's a lot of peaches close together. They're just small and almost unsellable. You want to try to pull your fruit off before it gets the size of maybe $1 or $1/2. If you wait till after that, then the tree has already put all its energy in those fruit, and thinning them may not help too much. So that's why we do it when they're small. And sometimes it's hard to see them too when they're little, but we don't want to wait too late and let them get too big on us, because it does take some time to get all the trees done. We're using a roller right now instead of my do-all. I'm getting my next field of peas kind of prepared before it rains, but I'm not going to plant them yet. And I decided to use the roller because this field sometimes is hard to dry out, especially on the ends. And instead of dragging the dirt around with the do-all right after it rains, I thought we'd try the roller and see how it does. We got a short window, probably looks like rain Thursday, Friday, and then maybe Tuesday. So depending on how much it rains this weekend, we're gonna try to get my next peas planted before it rains a second time. Hopefully it won't be too much on this field right here. It's been 7 days since we planted our first peas. You know, they're coming up, I showed you that. I thought about going ahead and planting the second ones now before it rains, but it's supposed to be about 43 to 45 on Sunday and Monday morning, and depending on how much rain we get, I don't want it to be cold and 40 degrees and that seed sitting in that wet dirt. So I think I'm going to wait till after it rains, and hopefully we can get them in on time. I don't like to go past about 12 days, 14 at the most, between the first and the second pea planting. So, you know, we never got a rain on the first peas that we planted to activate my chemical. It's been 7 days. The label says 7 to 10, and then after that, you're gonna lose it. So if it rains tomorrow night, we're looking at about 8.5 days. So I hope we haven't lost it, because if we have, we're in trouble, because that means we got nothing as far as weed protection. Very unusual in April that we would go that long without a rain. So anyway, we'll see. All right, we've got the plants inside the shop here. We like to bring them in when there's a chance of severe weather like it is tonight. That way, if they're under the shed in the back, it could still blow sideways and get them. So just a little safety deal to have them inside just in case. It's Friday morning, and y'all can tell by the rain gauge that we got 1.5 inches of rain last night. We did not have any severe weather, so I'm thankful for that. It was a little bit more than I was expecting, though. I was hoping to get our next peas planted this upcoming Monday. Now I'm not so sure. We'll have to see how it dries out over the weekend, but hopefully that'll be on the next video. Next week, we're going to show you how to tie the tomatoes, how we do it, and we're going to be doing some more planting. Some of those plants you saw on the trailer in the shop there, we'll be planting. Of course, once we plant our next tomatoes, we'll have to stake them again and put out the chemical again, and all that same process over. We're still thinning peaches, so we've got plenty to do. You know, the longer we go in the season, the more we have to do, because we have to take care of everything that we planted, as well as we're planting something new just about every week. So anyway, we're going to wrap up the video here, and I thank y'all for watching, and see y'all next time.